What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Valero Verdict. I am your host, Ricky Valero. On today's episode, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on season 2 of the Squid Game. Squid Game is a show that I've kind of avoided for the last few years. And then out of nowhere, my daughter is a massive fan of this show. And she's like, you know what? We need to watch it. So we binge watched season 1. And I was like, you know what? If I'm going to watch season 2, I'm going to take some notes and I'm going to review it here for the Valero Verdict. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on the show, break down my thoughts on the games, the characters, some of my favorite ones as we get this big old cliffhanger heading into season 3. Very, very excited to talk about this show. Heading into the show, again, very little expectations, but as I was watching it, I was unpacking. I was like, this is phenomenal. Some great writing and all of the structure. So I wrote some notes down for each episode of what I thought. And let's go ahead and dive into what season 2 was about. It was set 3 years after Seong Gi-hun won the Squid Game, giving up on going to the United States and returning to the game with the intent of stopping them once and for all. He once again dives into the mysterious survival game, starting another life or death game with new participants gathered to win 45.6 billion yuan. A side plot of the season sees Hwang Jun-ho trying to locate Ji-hun with the help of hired mercenaries. Now, each one of these episodes brought something different and unique to the table. I absolutely loved, and I mean absolutely loved episode 1. Song's struggle to find and break down what is transpiring and how the games are played. He's utilizing all of this money that he won from the game to try to find this. And over again, no matter how hard he was trying, it just was not working. And then, of course, we get this introduction to a more in-depth kind of salesman, I guess you could say, was a baller decision. I love the guy. Cold, calculating, brilliant. And then we switch over to episode 2. Now, episode 2, I wasn't as big as a fan. I'm not going to lie to you guys. Episode 2, I liked the ending of him. I like the ending of it by him getting back in the game. I kind of felt everything leading up to that was kind of mediocre. Now, one of the things I will say is obviously the games play a big proponent in what makes these shows so much good. I could not have been happier. Could not have been happier to see the return of red light, green light. And I say this, and I'll tell you why. I understand it's a show, it's a game that we had already saw, but this allowed the layers of Song trying to inform everybody else that is on this on this quote unquote game show here that, hey, if you do not do this the right way, you are all going to die. So this also set up the idea that Song had the opportunity of telling everybody what each of the next games were. However, obviously, as we know, it doesn't play out just like that. Now, this was fantastic. It played out perfectly. And then, of course, once people started getting killed, things started to build perfectly. This was a great introduction to one of the funniest characters and my daughter's favorite character in the entire world, Mr. 230, Mr. Thanos himself. This guy was hilarious. This guy was hilarious from every single anytime he was on your screen, he had you laughing out loud. I mean, even here in this scene, just hilarious. But we're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves, right? But obviously, the first game kind of set us up for Song to kind of all right, guys, believe me when I tell you that you guys need to listen to me and unpack that this is a deadly game, right? I love the introduction of the leaving the Squid Game, right? So you could vote, and the most votes here, you got to leave the game, and you would split the pot of what's up there. So instead of it just being, oh well, you can leave the game or you can not leave the game, it left the door open for them to be like, oh yeah, we leave the game with X amount of dollars. This raised the stakes to me in a high level that I didn't realize at first, but then as well I was watching it, it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna let these people leave, but they also know they have to dictate how much money these people are in debt. So because of that, you're watching them kind of unpack this in a way that really kind of makes you laugh. Because, people were never going to be just quote unquote forgiving or just give the idea of just handing over the victory and let them go about their lives, right? So I do love the second game here. which was called the Six-Legged Pentathlon. Pentathlon. I hope I said that right. I'm butchering it here, but you had to play. Get a teams of what was it? Teams of five. You played Dijak, Digdakchi, Flying Stone, Gangi, Spinal Tap, and Jaga. And each one of these, as you first watch the first team go, you see everybody rooting on, and the atmosphere that they build here was nothing short of remarkable. Because I loved here the idea of building this sequence up of like people forgetting that you're in this deathly game, because it's like everyone's, oh my god, yes, 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 yes. And then when the first one happens, when the first death happens, it pulls the trigger and brings everybody back into reality of like, oh my god, we're in this deadly game and we're all going to potentially die here. I love that. I do think that the team building here and the team picking, I thought that was really cool. I love that element of always trying to figure out how many people are going to be in your teams. And then, of course, that only ramped up everybody going throughout this entirety of the thing. I loved, and again, this flipped into episode 5 here, right? I love the anxious, like the anxiety ridden filled thing that we saw with these people, because everybody was kind of freaking out, right? Everybody's like, oh my God, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it. And then like 149, 007, the Mom and Son combo, these two were hilarious. When you see 120, and then later on, you see 120 slapping the shit out of 44, and then they completed it, was also very, very cool. Again, there's certain elements of this show that really build that camaraderie. But to me, one of the most fascinating, one of the most unique, one of the coolest scenes I've ever seen. This was one of the most epic and grueling shots that I've ever seen on TV, right? This show is ruthless, right? We already know that this show is 1000% ruthless, but I loved this scene. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I love the way they unpacked it. I love the way they shot it. It was phenomenal. All right. That being said, we moved on to quite possibly the most chaotic, most craziest, insane games that we've seen so far in Carousel, right? Or I'm sorry, it's Mingle is what it's technically called, right? So as they play in this song, which you kind of um you kind of get this vibe of, oh man, this is going to be a fun little game. And then it's like when the sound stops, you have to team up with the specific amount of people, and that's who's on your team, right? That's who you got to get, and you got to get into one of these rooms before everybody else does. You got to close the door, you got to be locked in, right? So all of these, once you're at 5, if you have a group of 4, you got to grab one more. If you have 2, you have to grab somebody else and go get in the room. This built this anticipation and anxiety and intensity that you're trying to push people out of the way. We see people like pull people out of the way. We see we see our boy Thanos over here just dropping and pulling and plugging and all of these things, obviously dancing his way here as you saw. But you see this anticipation build because of these people are trying to figure out and navigate this while staying unified, kind of unified front here. But it was filled with lots and lots of intensity here, right? So this all led to quite possibly one of the most game-changing moments of the entire episode, right? We saw the unique thing that they brought 001 back to the game to be the person that is orchestrating the game, right? You know what I mean? We saw that in the first season where player number 1 was the guy, right? He was the one orchestrating everything like this. 4, 5, 6 kind of realized that towards the end, obviously, when he went to go meet him. However, he hasn't put 2 and 2 together yet in here, which I thought that he thought maybe at some point in time the trigger would go off in his head, but I haven't seen that happen yet. Maybe early in season 3, it might do that. But when we see it was down to you had to get 2 people in a room, and number 1 got in there with 4, 5, 6, his good buddy, and when he did, we watch him kill that guy right in front of his part, and right in front of 4, 5, 6's partner, and that changed how he saw him and kind of changed the perspective of what he did. Now he did what he had to do to kill people, but it was crazy. It was Again, it was just insane. You know what I mean? I love this. And then of course, again, the voting process here, they had this perfect amount of people left over, so we had a tie. So, of course, because of the tie in the voting, they weren't going to leave, but then they were going to stay, but they had a revote later. This led to a bunch of killing, right? I just, this was awesome. I understand they had to dwindle down people. We see our boy Thanos just kick the bucket. Um, that was kind of sad to see him go there. But that sequence, inside the bathroom, um, easy, right? You know what I mean? Like you're just battling for your life, and then everybody's in there, and then of course, Thanos over here just get forked to death. You know what I mean? That was pretty crazy. Obviously, the battle between the inside the bunks was really awesome, and then of course, I love um how everything kind of played up. I've seen a lot of complaints about the the element of the cliffhanger, right? I think one, I do think maybe they rushed the episodes a little bit just to get some more out there because obviously it's been a few years. But at the same time, I loved what they built here. I love the idea of that next level. I love the battle of, you know, um, player one just kind of orchestrating everything towards the end. You would watch him pinpoint everything, and you're like, "Yep, he's going to do this. He's going to do this. He's going to do this." And then he kills 456 his buddy, and then he pulls the trigger, and he's like, "You know what? Game over. We're done here. We're done playing here. We're done doing these things. It's a wrap. Game over. Period. We're finishing this here." And then, of course, that leads to what we're going to get into this, the back half here. Well, I guess into season three, not the back half of the season, but I loved everything about this. And to me, I'm in a boat. I don't know if I'm alone, but I loved season two. I think season two developed much more beautiful. It was kind of connected in so many different levels, and I loved it. And I think that it was, in my opinion, was better than season one. And I think that just stems from obviously you like the original aspect of the show, but I think that this built some momentum in such a beautiful and powerful way. Um, you know, I liked it. And I think some people kind of complained in some aspects, because he was like, oh, he wrote season one all by himself. And then there was like, man, there's so much pressure to create a second one. But for me, you know, not only did the creator of the show, um, not only the creator of the show, Hwang Dong-hyuk, just beautifully transition into a season two, but came up with a very great concept of the idea of bringing him back into the game. He said the inspiration behind the decision of continuing the Squid Game story was the Matrix films in which Neo chose the red pill over the blue pill. Jin-han is similarly chooses those responsibilities for the game rather to go back to his normal daily life. Again, I love the layers. You peel it back, and to me, it was just phenomenal writing, phenomenal storytelling, and I cannot wait. I'm on the edge of my seat. I'm ready for Ace. I'm ready for season three. That's happening later this year. Obviously, we know it comes to a fitting end at the end of this season, but very excited about that. I love to hear you guys' thoughts on season two of Squid Game. Are you excited about the upcoming third season? Tell me about what some of your favorite games are. Obviously, this game only had the three in it, with the Mingle, six-legged Pantheon, Pentathlon, and the red light, green light. But I'm a big fan of the show, big fan of this cast, and can't wait to see what season three has in store for us. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll be back later.